Lots of talk about Arsenal in the last couple of days, and I thought they just about got over the line against Ipswich. They were good in the first half. Second half, they slowed up a little bit. Ipswich were really good in the second half of that game. We did that live on talkSPORT with Alan Pardew on Friday night. Bukayo Saka, afterwards, it was confirmed, is going to be out until probably March now, following surgery on his hamstring. He did a tweet, didn't he, or was it an Instagram, where he said the majority see obstacles, but the few see opportunities. Recovery has begun and I'm coming back stronger. Thank you for all your messages. This is what Arteta had to say after Friday night's win over Ipswich about the extent of Saka's injury.
I said many weeks, so I think it will be more than 2 months. I don't know exactly how much longer. I think it will depend, how that scar tissue starts to heal, the first week or so, mobility of that. Let's see, it's very difficult to say.
I wonder what the Arsenal fans make of their prospects of winning a trophy without Bukayo Saka in the team. Obviously, it's going to be a couple of months. You don't want to go out and splash a load of money when you've got other players who can play in that position. But do Arsenal need something different if they're going to remain as title challengers here?
I think it's really difficult to replace a player of the importance of Bukayo Saka. Obviously, initially, we thought he'd be out at least until February, as you say. Listening to what Arteta said and looking at Saka's social media posts, it seems like it may well be a fair bit longer. I just don't see that Arsenal are going to have the funds to bring in the type of high-quality replacement in a January transfer window, particularly not when he will be back. Okay, it feels like a lifetime at the moment, but historically he's been a quick healer, Bukayo Saka, so hopefully it will be early March, if not end of February, for Arsenal and for England, of course, because the World Cup qualifiers are not that far away. I think the plan at some point is to bring in a new forward. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk about Alexander Isak. Now, Newcastle are asking for £150 million. That makes that deal look very difficult to do. But do I see a scenario where Arsenal go and spend huge money in January? I don't, to be honest. And in terms of their title chance, I think even in that win over Ipswich, when they toiled a little bit in the second half and probably were relieved to get over the line, I think you see already how much they're going to miss Bukayo Saka. They've got some huge games coming up, both in Europe, the Premier League and the FA Cup between now and his return. Not least Brentford away on New Year's Day. We know all about their home form. Then they go to Brighton. Brighton not in stellar form, but they've caused Arsenal problems in the past. Newcastle, of course, in the League Cup. United in the FA Cup, a North London derby. Aston Villa at home. Dinamo Zagreb in the Champions League. That's before you even get to the end of January. Girona as well. So he's going to miss some huge games, and I think it's really going to cost them.
Yeah, it's a tough injury to come back from as well. You just hope that it's not any sort of long-term implications for him. Arsenal obviously behind the eight ball in the title race, a title race which really they were expected to be leading with Manchester City. They've been waiting for Manchester City to falter for the last couple of years. Now they have. It's Liverpool seemingly who have taken advantage. 9 points clear of their closest rivals, and they've played the same number of games because although Arsenal play on Thursday, on New Year's, or the day after New Year, against Brentford away from home. Is that Wednesday? I don't know. I keep getting told different days.
New Year's Day is Wednesday, I think, yeah.
I can't remember. I don't even know what day it is right now, to be honest with you. You know what Christmas period is like? It's just like, we do dates, not necessarily days. But anyway, whenever they play, they've got to play again. But because the Everton game was postponed, they've got a game in hand, essentially. But if you match them up, they're 9 points clear. Is 9 points chaseable?
I don't think so. Not the way Liverpool are playing, I think, all the time. But
if that's the case, then everything's over, right? Because if Arsenal can't chase them, Chelsea can't chase them, then it's over already. And that can't be the case. It's too long to go.
I think it's over. I think 9 points to Arsenal, 10 points to Chelsea, Forest 8 points back. But, I mean, if you told them now they finish second at the table, they'd bite your hands off. I think the disappointment for Arsenal fans, if we'd have said to them at the start of the season that going into New Year's Day, you'd be 5 points ahead of Manchester City, they think, crikey, we're going to win the league finally. And yet Liverpool are 9 points ahead of them. So without Saka, I just don't see that they're going to close the gap. They've drawn too many games, haven't they? They've only lost twice in the league, Arsenal, this season, but 6 draws is really costly. And again, we'll come back to it because Martin Keown and Troy Deeney clashed about this when we did a show from Ascot a couple of months ago now. And Keown was saying the jury is no longer out when it comes to Kai Havertz as a false number 9. I beg to differ, Martin. I think it's a big problem for Arsenal.
Well, he's scored quite a lot of goals.
They need a number 9. proper centre
Do they
forward.
need a number 9?
If you
Do they
put
need a
Isak
left
in
winger?
if you put Isak in that team, I think they'd be a lot closer to Liverpool. Those draws they've had, I think, would have been turned into victories.
Yeah, but you can't say that would definitely be the case because you don't know how
Not
they would
definitely,
play.
but we're here to give an opinion, and that's my opinion.
No, but what I mean is that you can't assess how they would play differently until you see him in that team, do you? I mean, he is a different type of striker. They'd have to adapt the way they play. I think they need a little bit more supply from the wing positions. Saka now not being available means that Martinelli switched to the other side. He actually produced some really good moments in that game.
He got the
against,
assist, didn't he, against
Ipswich.
Ipswich as well?
Exactly. And then if you look at Trossard got the assist. Trossard went down the outside for the first time in the game. Actually, he kept coming in on his right foot, but actually he went on the outside for that one moment, and that just that variation just changed things slightly, and he pulled it through the penalty area, and it was tucked in by Kai Havertz. But I think they need something a little bit different in that area. Do you know what I mean? Do they need another number 9? How are you going to get one at this stage of the season? I'm not sure you are.
Well, they're not. That's the problem. 150 million pounds. I think that's fanciful, by the way. I think if Newcastle got 100 million pounds,
but that's the idea, right?
business.
So they just turn around and say 150 million quid. Everyone goes, no, we're not going to pay that, and that's it. Everyone leaves him alone. It puts everybody off. The price tag is too high. He's yet to sign a new contract, by the way, so it'd be interesting to see what the stance is in the summer if he still hasn't done so. Eberechi Eze was mentioned on this programme the other day, and I thought that's the kind of thing that Arsenal could do with someone who picks the ball up a little bit deeper, runs at defences and makes something happen.
Yeah, he's a good player, but Palace have proved themselves to be tough negotiators. Newcastle found that out with Mark Gay. I think obviously they sold Elise for decent money last summer. They sold Joachim Andersen as well, which is looking like a great piece of business for Fulham. He was excellent at Stamford Bridge in the game I did a few days ago. I don't see that they're going to be bullied into selling another one of their star players cheaply, to be honest. So again, in January, this window, Pep Guardiola said it.
You hate January, don't you? You're like the anti-January transfer man.
It's so difficult. It's so difficult to get value for money because really...
Why, though? What's the difference? What is the difference between January and the month when the window's opened in the summer? It's basically the same.
Well, for a start, there's 2 months less to negotiate. So you've got 3 months in the summer as opposed to a month now. Clubs are reluctant to lose players mid-season for fear of getting injuries in the second half of the campaign or not being able to find a replacement. And you tend to pay inflated prices for players in January because if you're Arsenal, for example, and you're desperately looking for somebody to replace Bukayo Saka, the selling club know that and they're going to add a few million quid onto the fee.
Well, it's not true though, is it? Right? Because in January the 1st, the window opens and it closes February the 4th this year? Is that right?
Yeah, so it's a month, isn't it? It's a month. Yeah,
it's a month, right? So what is it? In the summer, it opens on the 1st of July, closes on the 1st of September. That's 2 months, but the second month, everyone's playing football. So really, there's only 6 weeks before the start of the season that you can get it done anyway. So, I mean, it's just semantics. The negotiations happen way before. They've already started. People have already started plotting what they're doing for the summer, let alone starting to plot what they're doing for January. So, do you know what it is? It's because people are busy with other things. And
it opens in mid-June in the summer, so you've taken a couple of weeks off the window there.
It doesn't. It opens in the first. Doesn't it open on the 1st of July? Most contracts are out on the 1st of July.
Contracts are out on the 1st of July. The window opens a couple of weeks earlier. And obviously, what we saw in the summer transfer window, those first 2 weeks was the end of the PSR period. So there were bargains to be had. That's not going to happen in this window either.
I don't get why it's harder in January than it is at any other time if you're planning it. The same thing. And also, if you want to spend the money, just go and spend the money. If you turn around and said to Newcastle, here is 150 million quid, you'd get Alexander Isak.
They're not going to pay 150 million pounds in January.
They're not. But I'm saying to you, if you really thought that you could win the Premier League, would you do that?
I'm just looking now at the 12 greatest. There's an article, the 12 greatest January signings. Virgil van Dijk was signed in January, actually, wasn't he? Probably the most recent high-profile signing. United signed Nemanja Vidic in January, signed him at the same time as Patrice Evra. Luis Suarez went to
Fernando
Liverpool. Fernando
Torres went to Chelsea in January.
Andy Cole, Newcastle to Man United. That was one that rocked the world way back when. But there's a handful of examples compared to the big high-profile summer signings.
What happened that year that they signed Andy Cole in January?
In what respect?
Didn't they then go on and win the league?
No.
Man United as a result.
No, they signed him in January '95. That was and actually it's pertinent because Ludic Mikowsko was at West Ham yesterday. That was when they lost the league at Upton Park on the last day of the season.
It was, yeah. The Blackburn won the league that year, didn't they?
They did, yeah.
Arsenal been linked with a £70 million move for Matheus Cunha, but he's been able to play in Wolves' last 3 games when they've earned 7 points. That is all the while he waits for his ban. I mean, if you're a relegation rival of Wolverhampton Wanderers, would you be cocking an eyebrow at that?
Yeah, I don't really get it, because obviously Aston Villa had their appeal against John Duran's red card heard, albeit they had it rejected. So if the FA are able to deal with that scenario, why haven't they dealt with Matheus Cunha? I think if you are a relegation rival, you would be fuming because he was such a key part of their win over Manchester United. I think Ruben Amorim would rather he was suspended for that game as well. I've checked in with my source at Wolves this morning and said, are we going to get a decision on this one way or another? And the reply was, I would expect one today or tomorrow, but then I thought that last week. So I can't explain the delay, and I think it's really poor, actually, on behalf of the FA's compliance department.
You were expecting it on Friday, weren't you?
Yeah, we were. Wolves were. So you can't get a straight answer out of the FA, but really, the appeal should have gone in one day, and they could have made a decision the next. I don't understand why it's dragging on.
So what happened
been available.
was, he was charged, right? He was charged last week. Before Christmas, he was charged.
Yeah?
He was charged, and he had until the next day to respond. They responded, correct?
Correct.
And then we've heard nothing since.
Yeah, which is
and
baffling.
I think that was the 19th of the month when the written submission had to be put in. That's a long time. I mean, I know that, over Christmas, people take time off, but it doesn't take too long to have a look at it and make a decision, does it?
No, and since then, they've picked up 7 points, and Cunha's been heavily involved, particularly in the victories against Leicester and Manchester United. So if you are one of those teams competing with Wolves, I think you've got every right to be fuming.
Vitor Pereira is absolutely delighted by the way, because he's had the benefit of his services for those 3 games.
And the ban will take in the FA Cup third round now, probably, so that's one less Premier League game that he'll miss.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.